Hello and welcome to From the Be All End. This is the debrief for Liverpool 3, Burnley 1. A game played out in front of a record crowd, believe it or not, at Anfield. The Reds running out 3-1 winners, I say. But the Clarets, a valiant effort and perhaps a frustration is less with the overall performance and more down to individual errors and a lack of taking chances. I'm Andrew Greaves, a slightly depleted pod squad tonight. No Simon Evans, no Justin Connolly, but I am joined by Mr. Paul Woodhouse over in Cleveland, and a little bit closer to home in Hapton, Mr. Chris Borden. Gents, frustrating rather than poor. Chris, let's start with you. How do you see that performance yesterday?
Well, I mean, everyone goes there in hope rather than expectation of a result, and when you start the way you do and look the more likely to score, and then all of a sudden we're looking at another Rick from the goalkeeper. It is frustrating because we shooting ourselves in the foot again. To then deservedly level on half time, and so the performance is actually, if you match it up against last Saturday against Fulham, chalk and cheese. It was a good performance. I think Vincent was quite right to say. I mean, when he's been to Anfield with City down the years, they've had a chastening time, many a time, with the quality they possess. And Burnley created, how many very, very presentable openings yesterday. I mean, the Amdouni one's a tough one. I mean, Keller's quickly off his line and sort of snuffs that out. But the two for Fofana and obviously the Odebear one that comes off the first Fofana chance. So, they're absolutely golden opportunities. And it's just, I'm loath to have a pop at Fofana because I think again Keller has done well for the first one. He's stood up, stood tall, long. He hasn't gone to ground, and he's made a good stop. And the second one, he's shaped to sort of curl it in the far corner and done. He's opened his body out and done everything right, but he's just passed it, a yard or so, the wrong side of the post. And there's no guarantee. I've seen a few people say Lyle Foster takes that. I don't think there's a guarantee that happens either. But all in all, it's the same old story, just a different week, isn't it? Not good enough in one box and not good enough in the other.
Yeah, and would it? I mean, Chris mentioned that kind of, not a lot of teams go to Anfield and create as much as we do. Up until that first goal, we were probably the better side in that opening half an hour, weren't we? We had that Amdouni chance early doors, and I credit the goalkeeper there. I think Keller, has done really well. But it's kind of, if we were to take a step back from another defeat and what the result sheet says, it looks like it's another step forward, doesn't it? Perhaps not initially after the game. I think I was disappointed, but performance-wise, it is a step forward, isn't it?
I think so, yeah. It was almost a little bit of a shock because, like we were saying, you were expecting us to get a drubbing, being on the back foot constantly, but we actually took the game to them. It wasn't, even though we countered quite nicely, the chances we created, I would argue, the best set of chances we've created in 90 minutes throughout the season. And even the commentators were saying at half time, we were lucky not to going in front. Never mind level. And I think it wouldn't have been an absolute travesty had we gotten a draw out of that game. And again, like you just both said, we've done badly. We've made mistakes at the back, and we haven't taken chances. Had both of those things been rectified, we're looking at a very different result and a very good performance. But same old, isn't it? But I think I think overall, the performance and the way we stayed positive, and I think the way that we spoke about the game, I thought Sander Berger spoke very well about the game. He seemed quite upbeat as a squad and a team in terms of the performance, which is just quite heartening.
Yeah. Let's start with the rough before we move on to smooth, because, we can't get beyond the fact that, it is a howler from James Trafford. Now, I was talking to Phil Bird, Clarets Plus commentator and a member of the Goalkeepers Union himself, and he said it's the first direct error from James Trafford. I think there's there is other goals that have come probably from him and the way he is and not giving his defenders kind of the confidence as such. But Chris, it's a really weird one because second half he stays on his line from a set piece and gathers a Van Dijk header really comfortably. It just seems really poor decision making, doesn't it? Now, is that maybe a result of him thinking he has to prove himself? Because he will read stuff online, no matter what these goalkeepers say. They will read stuff online. Or is it the tactics? Is he being told to go out and he's got to come and claim everything, even though he's never going to get there? We saw it against Luton. He weren't really getting there. I know he was blocked off. But how did you read kind of Trafford's game or overall and for that particular incident leading to the first goal?
Yeah, I don't think he's trying to prove anything. He just he obviously thinks he can come and get it. And you say if you look at sort of, I mean, I'm no goalkeeper. I'll never pretend to be a goalkeeper, but the sort of default position for a corner is you would probably be sort of central, but just nearer the far post, just a touch. So, because it's easier to go forward and claim than it is to backpedal and claim.
Yeah.
Now, to me, he seems to do a lot of backpedaling. The sort of modern day goalkeepers, a lot of them are staying put and leaving it to their centre halves, which is something that, some Burnley fans might remember Lee Grant preferring to do. There's fewer crosses coming in the box in the Premier League than there has been down the years. It's but if you look at his stats, he's high up in like punches made, in high claims. All the sort of metrics that even in terms of like shots saved, he's sort of mid table in the Premier League, and his save percentage and things like that, and so you can't look at him and directly say, he is the reason, but it's massively frustrating when, like I say, every week the same thing seems to happen where you start reasonably well and there's a rick. And it happened in pre-season. He made a mistake from a cross at Genk in a friendly that led to a goal. He's got lobbed from the halfway line against Betis. I saw a comment on Twitter yesterday. It probably sums up my feeling. Really, I think if Vincent signed Trafford in the summer as he did, and I think still Murich's to lose. Even based on pre-season performances, Muric keeps a clean sheet against Benfica, etc. He's the Championship goalkeeper of the year. He knows how we play inside out. The thing is, it's his position to lose, and knowing full well that he's got, a hugely talented, European under-21 Championship winning goalkeeper breathing down his neck.
Yeah.
Now we've got this situation where he can make mistakes. As I was saying on the last pod, Muric must be thinking, well, when do I get my shot now? He's made another mistake. When do I get my shot? It's massively frustrating, but it's one of those you can deal in stats and you can deal with what your eyes tell you. I think our eyes are telling us that. To my mind, it's like the Hart situation that everything else has been changed to get a result by the goalkeeper. And for me, I think it's time to have a look at Muric.
Yeah, and would it? I mean, Arsenal yesterday, Sunday, warmed up for their trip to Turf Moor with a rather impressive victory against a dreadful-looking West Ham team. Is the Arsenal game the game where you kind of go, you know what? And Arsenal, of course, have changed goalkeepers. Arteta brave enough to change his goalkeeper, even though they're towards the top of the division. Is Arsenal the game where you kind of go, you know what, after that mistake, and if company views it the same as Phil does, that it's the first direct error, so we rest him, we take him out the firing line. We've discussed it till the cows go, but is the Arsenal game next weekend the game where you kind of go, it's a bit of a free hit, let's get Muric in and see what happens?
I mean, you can say that, but I doubt it's going to happen. But I think the Arsenal game, with the way especially they get balls into the box from corners, the way that they pepper the 6-yard box is going to highlight his deficiencies more than any other side, arguably. And we could be calling, You know, if he doesn't have a blinder and if he drops another couple of ricks, as Bodes has been saying, then I think the clamouring will be fever pitch. So, I mean, I can't see him being taken out for the Arsenal game. I can see the potential in doing so. I would rather have Muric in just for his ball playing as much as anything else.
Yeah.
But I can't see him being dropped for Arsenal. But I can see him having a bit of a howler against Arsenal if we're not careful.
Yeah, a bit similar to the game at the Emirates, of course, where his deficiency of under crosses was exploited to good effect by the Gunners. Chris, just on the rest of the defence, we know it's been a difficult one for Vincent Kompany to get right. I think I saw up the Clarets. Somebody said we'd had 14 different combinations of a back four. You know, either due to tinkering at the start of the season or injuries to Bayer, and then Delquois gets injured, and then, you know, O'Shea really, and we'll come on to O'Shea in a minute, the only real constant. That back line looked like it had a bit of something about it. It's probably the tallest back line we've had for a while, with Esteve coming in and Delquois at left back. You know, I'm guessing without any injuries, and I know Esteve went off, you'd be tempted to stick with that back line, would you, Chris?
Yeah, because I said, I mean, we've conceded soft goals again. You know, two from a corner if you count the the recycling of the ball for Nunez's the third goal. But overall, I mean, you're looking at Assignon, and he's, you know, I think there's a chance in the first half where he's covered across. You know, they managed to sort of smuggle it behind for a corner that they score from, but he's over on the cover. He's read the situation. He's shown enough going forward. You know, he's got the assist last week. He looks an astute signing on a small sample size. Same with our old mate Steve. Again, like Nunez tried to run him yesterday, didn't he? And he covered the ground. Cut the space off and matched him yard for yard, and I ended up winning a free kick in the end. But again, like Delquois done well in pockets. You look back to the cup tie at Spurs, and you're going to go on to O'Shea, but O'Shea, I say, we spoke about the metrics. One of the quickest players in the Premier League. He's heading, aerial duels, one of the top players in that respect, and he's turning into one of the bigger success stories in terms of Vincent's development.
Yeah, definitely. And would he, in his first league goal, I know he scored at Salford, but his first league goal, it's a superb header from, we have to give him credit, a brilliant brownie off set piece. I'm not quite sure where he's get that out of him, but Chris is right. I mean, we were very, very, very critical of O'Shea from a positional sense, from a distribution sense, but he is that kind of turning into a 7.5, possibly even an 8 on Saturday kind of player, which you kind of cry out for. And for all the kind of, all the fancy players we've signed from foreign leagues, it is slightly strange that a guy playing his trade at West Brom becomes that success story of the recruitment plan.
Yeah, but to be fair to, Vincent and his team, give him at least half a season with one or two players, and it can get them to turn their game around quite considerably. We saw it last year, even with Connor Roberts and Ashley Barnes, and he's obviously doing it to a similar extent with O'Shea. And I mean, that header is something out of the top shelf. He's never going to score one of those again, or maybe he will with that amber lead. It was absolutely exquisite. I mean, I could watch that all day.
Like John Bender, all right.
Oh, it was unbelievable, wasn't it? But yeah, I mean, and that back four yesterday had a little bit more guile, a little bit more pace to it, a little bit more height, and with O'Shea coming to fruition a little bit more, 3/4 of it looked quite accomplished. The only thing we're still crying out for really is a proper left back, and then I think the back four, especially for next year, could look quite nice if we could keep that together. But Steve is decent, like we say. He's got the pace. That foot race with Nunez was pretty decent. Assignon's looking very good, and I hope he continues this season as he started off. And yeah, all told, I think there's the signs of improvement. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, definitely. And just kind of moving kind of slightly forward, Aaron Ramsey, a bit of a strange one, because I really did not expect him to start after his performance against Fulham, which I didn't think was great. He again, worked hard. Perhaps it is that old adage that players need games. I mean, we've tried so many different people in so many different positions, but Chris, in terms of Ramsey, it's a bit more of what we want to see. Yes, we can talk about the heavy touch again that ends up leading to a goal, but it's we've discussed it on the WhatsApp group. It's a foul. And if Atwell, who was sat in the VAR cupboard at Stockley Park, gives the foul against Ramsey on Duran at Villa Park, then that is more of a foul on Ramsey himself. But he's a bit of an enigma at the minute, isn't he, Ramsey? Because he had that really great half against United, and then has been poor largely in pockets since. Did you see something in Saturday's performance that makes you think there is something we can develop within Aaron Ramsey?
100%. There's a player there. I don't think, a lot of people sort of questioning the recruitment in the sense of playing Ramsey. Ramsey's one of those. He's going to need a run of games, and maybe that's Vincent's decided to play him through a sticky performance last week and just sort of let's give him he's fit. Let's give him a run of games, sort of thing, and see what he can deliver. He's got quality. He's technically gifted. And he did well yesterday until he tired in the game. And as you say, I mean, don't get me going on Stuart Atwell. I'm sorry. I mean, I've seen a number of viewpoints on it. And Stephen Warnock, who, bear in mind, is a former Liverpool player and a former Blackburn player, was doing the Sky commentary when I checked out last night. And he's, as Vincent's there, Vincent's got booked for opening his arms and saying, It's a foul. So, with all due respect, I mean, I'd have done a 5-year ban with my time with Stanley Ladies, for my language at times. But it's astonishing that Ramsey does take a heavy touch, but McAllister, he doesn't just he hits him flush. He swings and kicks him flush on the shin. You see his leg wobble. And because he doesn't do what McAllister does and do 28, salsa, bloody Balco, spins and all this, he gets nothing. And all they're doing, if they look, fair enough, they've looked at the goal, decided it's onside, but they're supposed to go back at the whole sequence.
Yeah.
Anyone who, just because he hasn't gone to ground, that's not a foul. He tickles Duran the other week and he's still rolling, I think. I don't think he's, it's just pathetic. And remember Rude Hullet sort of criticising, was it Big Volksy against Swansea? And we're going back almost a decade now, to 14, 15, criticising Big Volksy for not going down and a tug on the shirt in the Premier League. And, Sean Dyche, famously sort of, refused to allow his players to do anything like that to their detriment, ultimately. And we're still in that position now where if you simulate or enhance contact, you will be rewarded. I just think it's absolutely disgusting. It's like Pates was saying on Friday's podcast about there's kids emulating their heroes now, rolling around looking for free kicks, and it's a million miles away from the game I grew up playing in.
Yeah.
I'd make sure you stay down there, my bloody roll round.
And Woody, just kind of moving further forward still, we mentioned the chances at the start. We mentioned the frustration at missed chances. Fofana, though, I mean, he looks like the kind of player we've been missing, doesn't he? I mean, I know we've been brilliant with Foster, and again, I'd be tempted if the two of them were both fit to play them both, and shift Fofana perhaps out wide instead of Amdouni. But Fofana looks a good player, doesn't he? I mean, he came on last week and made the difference, dragged us back in it, won us a point, and again, led the line with very few scraps to feed on for the most part, but got himself in two really good positions. Probably should have buried at least one, if not both. But it's promising, isn't it? Because again, us being a cynical set of middle-aged blokes, we're kind of shrugging his shoulders when he signed, going, well, what's he going to offer? But again, there's something there, isn't there? There's clearly, Vincent and these recruitment team have identified a player they think can make a difference.
Oh, absolutely. But at the end of the day, that difference has to be seen in terms of finishing chances, hasn't it? And I mean, you could tell he was obviously absolutely gutted with both, that he'd kind of fluffed his lines on both. But I think a little shout out to Amdouni as well for that flick for his second miss that he just brought inside. And we give Amdouni a lot of shit, and I've said I've had enough of him or whatever. And we sometimes miss those little things that obviously they see in training week in, week out. And the stuff that he's seeing and certain other players are trying to see and trying to pull off, that when it does come off is quite spectacular, And I think if this side got a chance to gel and just play a little bit, and there were signs of it yesterday, some of the triangles, some of the 1-2s we were playing and little layoffs, etc., were extremely cute. And Liverpool were struggling at times to, combat it. And we did look good in the middle of the park in the final third at times yesterday. And I think Fofana, with a little bit more confidence, and once he's got the rust out of his legs, could have quite a good end to the season, all told, because he's got that little burst of pace. He showed the Liverpool back four a very clean pair of heels, it could be an interesting little player towards the end of the season. He won't keep us up, but he could score 7 or 8.
Yeah, I said this morning, Chris, 7 or 8 goals you'd expect him to kind of, come away with. For a loan signing to come in January, that's in the Premier League, that wouldn't be a bad return. We're not going to place too much pressure on him, but he's got a bit of movement. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Nathan Teller in terms of, perhaps more his performances in the last 2 games when he created the goal for Alderkiel, and then, his movement for the goals of the others. But he's a player who's positive, isn't he? He's a bit more aggressive perhaps than what we've had. And I know Foster can be quite aggressive, but I've complained about the lack of aggression. He's got a bit of that kind of final third aggression about him, hasn't he?
Yeah, you can see he wants to make things happen, doesn't he? I mean, we're all sort of scratching our heads because of his record in Germany, which wasn't great. And but you look at the first opening yesterday. That's it's a Trafford plays the ball out from the back and it sort of ricochets through, but he's sensed an opportunity, and it like Woody says, that burst. It takes him past Van Dijk, who apparently players don't go past, and every Burnley player, every Burnley forward went past him yesterday at some stage. Burst past Van Dijk, and I credit the keeper there. I thought he stayed big, stays up, and makes a fine save. Second one's that again, he's sort of. I think it's Delquire heads it down to Amdouni, just little, gorgeous little touch. But again, he finds himself in that, it's the Thierry Henry position, isn't it? The one that every time, inside left, can he shape it inside the far post? And he's shown that level of composure. He's not thrashed at it, not smashed through the back of the ball. He's tried to feed it inside the far post. He's just set it out too far, unfortunately. And he's got something about him. That interview where he signed, there's a character there, and he's bringing that into his football as well. I bet he's good fun in the changing rooms, etc. But it looks like he will find. You look at some players like Sean Dyche used to say that Chris Wood would find himself an opportunity in the game. You didn't necessarily have to create chances for him, and he's probably like a more old school version of that in a sense. That he's sniffing these openings out. Like his goals against Fulham are a very, very clear point in that respect.
Yeah, Christ, we were trying to keep it positive. Now Chris is liking him to an old school Chris Woody. I didn't think the positivity would last for the full half an hour, but there we go.
I don't think he deserves that, does he? To be fair.
The poor bastard.
I know.
Somebody this morning said he reminds them of Adi Akinbaye as well. So we're proper going old school, that kind of aggression and the way he moves and things like that. So
he's more of a natural goal scorer than Adi ever was, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you could package up the strength of Akinbaye and the goal scoring nous of an informed Chris Woody, we'd be pretty happy with that, wouldn't we?
I think we would, wouldn't we? We would. I mean, but I will say that I think Foster takes one of those chances with how he's been this season. He's been very scarce in terms of one-on-ones, but the one-on-ones that he has taken, he's done something with them. And I think he would have pinged that a little bit sooner. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I do think
Villa away, Luton away.
Yeah. And I think Fofana coming off the right or the left or whatever would be quite a potent little strike for us, quietly away.
And we did see it. I guess we saw flashes of that against Fulham. I mean, it's a brilliant ball from Foster to Asignon on his wrong foot for the first goal. But just finally, one of the things that I've kind of been thinking about over the last couple of games, it really came to mind yesterday, and it was my frustration with Vinny's substitutions. It's not the first time, but it was almost as though we'd had those two clear-cut chances, and the decision in Vinny's mind and amongst the staff was, we're not going to get another chance. Let's retreat a little bit. And it got me thinking about whether we are over-reliant, or he is over-reliant, on games being played out by numbers, by which I mean the kind of the metrics. So he will look at that performance yesterday and kind of go, well, we had this amount of touches in the middle third, which is where I see us having that amount of touches. And I just wondered if you two guys thought that we lacked a little bit of perhaps emotion in the way we play. Now, I mentioned that because, Chris, I think you said earlier, the metrics, the numbers tell us one thing, but, our eyes tell us another. Jamie Hoyler, when we chatted to Jamie, talked about Jared Branthwaite and the recruitment team not fancying him, but Jamie saying you've got to go and look at him. Refer to Mickey Phelan pre-season talking about players making decisions. I just wonder if Saturday's performance is perhaps a different performance if players are empowered to make decisions for themselves without everything being to a framework. Does that make sense, Woody? In terms of, I just wonder whether we're almost kind of Formula 1-esque, that the bench is almost pressing all the buttons like it's some kind of FIFA or soccer manager.
Yeah.
And actually what we need, and we perhaps saw a couple of flashes of with creating the chances, that freedom, that emotion in the way players play.
Exactly. I think it's a very solid point, really, and it's being able to adapt to what the game is as opposed to what you think in the game, how it's going to transpire and how you'd want it to be. Yeah. And football, no sport kind of follows along, to an exact blueprint, does it? And it's that's why you get paid the big bucks as a manager. You've got to be able to read those situations and see things within games and be able to shift things within games in order to start having an impact. And we've said it before that we don't feel that, especially at the beginning of the season, Vinny struggled with that quite a bit. I think he's getting arguably a little bit better at it, but I still don't think he's able to impose himself and what needs to be done within a game at the right times. And it just seems like, well, we're making these changes now, well, for the sake of making these changes. And, whether it's to, I think it's probably a fair point.
Yeah. And Chris, in terms of substitutions, I just thought when we had them two chances, that was perhaps the chance to freshen up. I mean, Amdouni was fading a little bit, Ramsey was fading. I'd have perhaps gone balls out and brought Benson on. And I just thought we'd kind of bloodied Liverpool's nose a little bit without really, but it just felt the game, the momentum almost shifted back to Liverpool because we kind of went, oh, hang on a minute, we've got a little bit too far, above a station. We're going to have to just sit back. And for me, it just felt a little bit like we retreated after those two chances rather than going, you know what, we can bloody get at these. I don't know how you saw kind of Vinny's changes yesterday. I mean, it just seemed a shame that Benson was there but didn't get a sniff.
Yeah, I think it's I mean, that's the supporter in all of us, that we would make the attacking change, and we would, it's like I say, it is a measure of, the manager. A lot of people will moan about Gareth Southgate's sort of changes and how he adapts during games, and maybe he hasn't gone for the jugular in big situations, and hence England, as well as they've done under his reign, haven't gone, the final yard. But he's not an emotional type, Vinny, is he? He's a very sort of, like I say, I think he's a. He's got his philosophy. He's got what he plans out in mind, and he's not going to get carried away. He's not going to, you can remember Warnock back in the day getting upset and an instant triple change because he's furious at something. Or I can remember Stan against, was it Cardiff at home, making a change after about 25 minutes because he was not happy with how things were. I think that sort of, even with more subs nowadays, I think that sort of emotional reaction, it just isn't there. I think people, like Beastie was saying earlier this season, they trust the process a bit more than maybe the fan does. But it's hindsight, isn't it? I think he's very, very, very wary of what Liverpool can offer at the same time.
Yeah,
and if you do go gung ho, I mean they can absolutely carve you open at any given moment. But it's a tough one, isn't it? I think we'd all like to have seen. I mean, the baffling one's not getting Benson on. I mean, you play Vitinho sort of left hand side, and great to see him on the bench. And he just looked you're looking at his face. I'm not going to judge from a bit of a camera showing on him, but he looked a bit glum. And he no doubt he's not had the opportunity to show off his undoubted ability on the highest stage this season. And it's again, like we're saying, he not everything else has worked. It's got to be worth letting him have a go at it.
Yeah, definitely.
Trez always had a crack at it. Brun Larsen's had a crack at it. Johan. I mean, I don't know where Johan was yesterday. I don't know whether he'd picked up a knock or something like that. But he will give you nothing going back the other way, Benny. But it's what he gives you when he's in possession, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's leave that there. Hopefully, that's one of the more positive debriefs of the season. Don't forget, nothing says I love you quite like a From the BLN t-shirt. They are now on sale just in time for Valentine's Day. So don't forget to check out.
Absolutely battered.
Just thinking, well, my wife's a Blackburn Rovers fan, so I'm definitely getting a full set of t-shirt for her for Valentine's Day. I'm sure she can hear me in the next room as well, so maybe I'll be in trouble after we finish recording. But don't forget to check us out on social at BL Podcast. You'll find all our designs and the link to our shop on our website. We'll be back on Friday with a normal episode. Until then, enjoy the rest of your week and up the Clarets.